nice Viburnum opulus here, which is a really nice perennial shrub or tree that is native to Ireland. And it's really interesting, we didn't actually know there were that many Viburnum opuluses on the land until this spring. This is our second spring and summer here, and last spring or summer that didn't flower that much at all. And this year there was an abundance of the beautiful kind of flat white florets that you would see on the viburnums this summer, and there's just tons of them. So we noticed there was loads of it growing. I'm here just in front of the house with this one, but there's a number of big ones around the lake, and also there's a number of smaller self-seeded ones coming up throughout our woodland. So we're going to be clearing space around them, and we're really excited because I haven't actually had a chance to make medicines from our own viburnum for years because we didn't have enough of it. And so really excited to see so many of them this year. And it's just really strange that they didn't really flower last spring, but last spring all the hawthorns all over the land really were in abundance of flower. They were just laden down with flowers. And this year all the viburnums are in full flower, and as you can see, loads of berries coming on them. But there were not many hawthorn flowers at all this year in 2020. So that's quite interesting. And as a result, there's not many hawthorn berries here. We've tons of hawthorn on the land, but this year seems to be a viburnum year as opposed to a hawthorn year. So this is really interesting that in a woodland, different plants or different trees have their own mast years where they would produce a lot of flowers, a lot of seeds, a lot of berries, and then other years they don't. So it wasn't a hawthorn year. 2019 was definitely a hawthorn year, and 2020 is definitely a viburnum year here with us. So it's great. So we use the bark of the Viburnum opulus, and there is about over 150 species of Viburnum opulus out there, and a lot of them are given the common name Gilder rose, but they're not all the same, and we don't use some of them in herbal medicine. And it's the bark that we use. So it is, be careful, do identify them properly, get yours identified. This is the wild one that we have growing here, one of the wild ones, and this is the bark. So come early spring, I will actually be cutting off branches of this viburnum. This is quite a tall one, a big one, and there's a number of other big ones around the lake, and I wouldn't mind cutting some of it back anyway. So I'll be cutting off some quite thick branches, and I'll just be peeling off the bark with a knife. And then this is what you get. So this is some dried Viburnum opulus that I would have wild harvested before, and you can just leave it dried like this, or you can use it fresh as well. So what do we use it for? So generally it's known as an antispasmodic herb. So that's its main action that most herbalists would use it for, and for a whole host of muscle spasms and muscle cramps as well. So the main use herbalists use it for would be menstrual cramps and uterine cramps, and all that smooth muscle tissue that's there in the uterus or in the digestive tract, or even in the bronchi as well, in the respiratory system. So we use it a lot for menstrual cramps, as I said, stomach cramps and digestive cramps, also for asthma, where there is that wheezing or that bronchial spasm. It relaxes that, again, because it's antispasmodic. And even people use it for angina as well, for that pain relief for angina. And things you might think about using it with would be, if it is for those kind of stomach cramps, you might think of using it with Dioscorea, which is your wild yam, which we spoke about before and I did a video on, or chamomile, or lemon balm, or mint, or catnip. And if it's more bronchial spasm from asthma, you really need to use some bronchodilators too to open up the airways. So one of the plants I love to use, and we grow a lot here as well, is Grendelia Robusta, which is gumweed, and that's a really nice bronchodilator, so it works really well. But there's a whole host of other bronchodilators that you could mix Viburnum opulus with as well. So the viburnum will be used to relax the bronchi and that spasm, the wheezing spasm, but you need a bronchodilator to open it up as well in cases of asthma. And stomach spasm, as I said. If it's menstrual cramps, you would think of using it with things like maybe valerian or black cohosh. And then for things like fibroids, which are a bit deeper moving, depends on the fibroids, you'd use it with a whole host of other uterine herbs. So it is thought of a herb that's beneficial for the uterine area or the menstrual area. It is related to, just on that, another plant as well, which is Viburnum prunifolium, which is a North American plant. So it's another type of viburnum, which they call black haw, and that's a Native American Indian traditional remedy, and that is very much associated with menstruation and uterine issues as well. And herbalists over there, I don't use it personally, Viburnum prunifolium, which is black oil, but herbalists over there would use it for things like threatened miscarriage. They would use it in pregnancy under the supervision of a herbalist. So it's quite useful herb, and again, it has this lovely antispasmodic action as well. So some of the viburnums have similar uses, but this one again, we use it for other kind of deeper pain relieving and deeper muscle tissue issues as well. So whether it's back pain or whether it's cramps or nighttime cramps, and you might use it with other quite strong herbs as well. So again, things like valerian or black cohosh are really nice there. You can use it externally for those kind of muscle cramps too. So again, you take your Crampbark and you would tincture it. So we would tincture it fresh or tincture it dried. And you can actually use it as a liniment. So you'd use it externally, the tincture externally, directly onto the muscles. So maybe for painful joints or painful muscles as well. So it works on those deeper muscle tissues as well. Or things like fibromyalgia. So fibromyalgia, you would have moving kind of muscle pains all over the body, mostly around the shoulders and back. And those real classic kind of spasmodic muscle pains, you would think of Viburnum opulus as well. And its common name, or what people do tend to call it, is Crampbark. For that reason, you use the bark, and it's for those kind of cramps or spasms that are anywhere in the body. And another name people may call it, English name, would be Guelder Rose. But just be careful there as well, because there are lots of other types of Guelder Rose out there which aren't this Crampbark. So just be careful that it shares the name Guelder Rose with a number of other species of viburnum that we don't use in herbal medicine. So again, just be careful about that. And then another thing that we would also use the bark for is things like fibroids as well, as we mentioned, or circulatory issues too. So some people would maybe combine it with things like prickly ash, which is a nice circulatory stimulant, and or else motherwort as well, which is said for the angina. So some circulatory issues you can use it for, which is quite nice. It is hot, it's warming, it's heating, and it's pungent. And probably why it's really nice for fibromyalgia actually, because it relaxes all that spasm in the body and it reduces vata, which is fibromyalgia is a real vata issue in Ayurvedic medicine. It's used a lot in TCM as well, as you'd use it in formulas for nourishing the blood and the yin and the chi for menstrual issues. So it just depends on what's happening for the person, but it can be used there too. And another thing that would be nice for it to use for is for cases of IBS, so irritable bowel syndrome, where there's a lot of cramping or spasming the lower digestive tract. So it works in all that smooth muscle there to relax it, and probably consider it more where there's constipation with IBS. So IBS can be both ways. It can be alternating constipation and diarrhea, but you definitely would have that cramping, and you could think of using Crampbark, Viburnum opulus, for that too, alongside some of the herbs I already mentioned for the stomach spasms, like chamomile and like melissa, which is lemon balm. Just depends on the person, because IBS can be a lot to do with the nervous system, and this herb is used for the nervous system. It is quite a mild sedative, a mild nervous system. So we do use it sometimes for people who will be up at night with cramping pains. You might think of viburnum to ease all the spasms and the cramps, and just gently sedate the body, but always used in combination with other herbs. So these gorgeous bark jibbings can be just decocted into a tea. So you could dry it, and you could actually just cook these up and make a tea out of them, which is a really nice thing to do. Or you can tincture them, which is something that we do, and then you're getting a much stronger medicine and it lasts for a lot longer. So that's a little bit on viburnum, a whole host of uses, and really excited to have it here at Ivywood and have so much of it here, so that we'll be cutting back a number of larger branches from some of the larger viburnum trees like this one, and we'll be peeling off the bark, and we'll be tincturing them fresh, and we'll be drying them too. So it's a little bit on Crampbark. Thanks.